Welcome back to Super Bowl week. Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco 49ers. Who would have thought? Probably a lot of people going into the year. We got a lot to cover, but before we get into that, a reminder to everybody watching the show, make sure you like and subscribe. We appreciate all the subscribers. Help us build the channel. We got a lot of fun things coming this offseason. We're going to start having some guests. For you Miami Dolphin fans, this is a very good sports channel to follow because we're going to go into a lot of Miami Dolphins history. I think that will be a lot of fun for everyone. I'm solo this episode, but it's fine because I got a lot of strong opinions about this Super Bowl and what to expect going forward. First things first, are we in an era where it's like, what's the point of watching? And I don't really mean that. Obviously, football is very entertaining. It's one of the most entertaining things that it's created fan casts, which this is a fan cast. This is, I'm a comedian that's a huge fan of football that I have devoted my life to talking about the NFL weekly. That's how much I love it. That being said, are we in an era where we're watching another Michael Jordan dominate a league? And that is Patrick Mahomes as he enters his fourth Super Bowl in 6 seasons. Now, some of you are already probably thinking, what about Tom Brady? He was so dominant. Yes, but he was beatable for a good chunk. For a good 8 years there was a time where anybody could win. And other people were slipping through the cracks, winning Super Bowls. And then they got it together again. And he dominated. Really, the second half of his career was more domination than the first half. But right now with Mahomes, it's scary. It's a scary time to be a fan, especially in the AFC. As I've mentioned before to a lot of Dolphin fans, I go, listen, if you don't have a guy that you think can be a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback that can dominate on the field and win games himself, not with a number one defense, not with great players around him like the San Francisco 49ers, not with superstars, kind of like how Patrick Mahomes is right now. There's not a lot of superstars. Yes, he has Travis Kelce, and there's some great guys on defense, but it's not a stacked team. You could argue that there's more stacked teams like the Chargers, the 49ers, the Dolphins, the Eagles, the Cowboys, a lot more teams with a lot more talented rosters that are not in the Super Bowl right now because of Patrick Mahomes and how good he is. We're in that era right now where that's scary. And if you don't have a guy that you think can compete with that guy, why wouldn't you keep looking? And I'm not going to go backwards here and go to previous episodes about how I would talk about that, especially for Miami Dolphins fans. But I feel like we're in a situation here where I truly believe, and I am behind the fact that I think Patrick Mahomes is probably going to go to at least 6 Super Bowls. He's already in his 4th. I think it's easy and fair to say that he would go to 2. If you're listening right now, would you bet that he would or wouldn't going forward? If you had to lay down your own hardworking money and someone said in the next 10 years, would you bet that Mahomes will go to at least 2 more Super Bowls or he won't? I would promise you that you are probably, like everyone else, going to bet that you think he would go to at least 2 more Super Bowls. That would be 6 total. I mean, he's only 28. So we're entering a thing where at least when Brady had won those 3 Super Bowls in those first 4 seasons of his career, it felt like that was it. And there wasn't going to be a domination of him later on in his career. You thought, oh, he'll get to 1 more and maybe tie Montana. We didn't think he would win 7 and go to 10, which seems impossible. And even now, with Mahomes entering his 4th Super Bowl and maybe winning his 3rd, you still think after 3 Super Bowl wins, he would have to win 4 more. It seems impossible. And it really does, even for how good Mahomes is. But it doesn't seem impossible that he will go to 3 or 4 more. Okay, this is kind of the point. The point I want to make is if you are a GM of an NFL team or you are the owner, I think over the next 10 years, it is okay to celebrate if your team makes it to the AFC Championship. That is itself a huge win, especially in a conference with Patrick Mahomes. I think that's a fair take. Going forward for all fan bases in the AFC, Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals, they've beaten Mahomes. Do they want to get back to another Super Bowl? Of course they can. Of course they would like to as well. Steelers, Chargers, Jaguars, Titans, Texans, Dolphins, Jets. Any of these teams, Browns, that have a chance of maybe getting to a Super Bowl with what they believe they have right now. I think all those teams I named right now think they have a chance at getting to a Super Bowl. I think the fan bases, and I'm not talking about the organization, although I think that the organization should be satisfied if they did get to a conference championship game. As a fan, you have to kind of mentally prepare yourself and emotionally accept that getting to a conference championship in the AFC, getting to the AFC championship in itself, celebrate that. Because right now, that might be the best any team is going to do over the next 10 years. I can promise you over the next 10 years, barring any injury, but with Mahomes, he's probably going to go to 7, 8 of the next 10 conference championships. He's going to be in there. So if you get there and you win, that's crazy. But to be there, and if you're going to lose to Mahomes, you're like, well, at least we're losing to arguably the second greatest quarterback of all time, if not potentially the greatest when it's all said and done, which we will never be able to tell. And if anyone's watching this, by the time we were able to say that, this probably won't even be a show. So that being said, that's what we got going on right now for fan bases all across the AFC. NFC, I think it's time that we kind of try to take on an NFC team. If you're an AFC fan and you're not a Chiefs fan, you got to kind of look for an NFC team that you can kind of follow throughout the year. At least I'm in LA and I have the Rams. I can't get behind it. You know, it's hard. There's the Chargers. You know, like, what's the point? He's in the division with Mahomes. Can Harbaugh take down Mahomes? It's going to be very tough. We got this is a big week for Super Bowl parties. Every year, everybody has a big Super Bowl party. I've always promised myself the last few years that, hey, this is my last Super Bowl party, and I want to watch the game by myself. I want to watch it and actually watch the game. I don't want to miss things. I don't care about the commercials. I don't care about having a good time. I've done that already. I'm 39. I want to sit down on my own couch, order food, and maybe have a couple buddies over and we watch the game. And every year I get sucked into a party and I miss part of the game and I don't really know what happens. Like, you watch the fourth quarter and you're like, that was a great game. Was it? Or that was a boring game. Was it? Or we just didn't see a lot of big plays. And going forward in this episode, we're going to break down some of the top 10 Super Bowls that I've witnessed in my life. I don't know about your life if you're older. I'm assuming there's not a lot of people older than me listening to this podcast. But Super Bowl parties in itself, I think, are overrated as you get older. You kind of realize that I want to just watch the game. I understand it's a holiday. It's a national holiday. It's not recognized as a national holiday. People don't get off work on Monday. But everybody is aware of the Super Bowl, and it's a festivity for people to gather and get together. And that in itself is fun because we all love a reason to get drunk, don't we? But as I get older, I want to drink less, and I want to be around people who drink a lot less. And I also have realized that every time I go to a Super Bowl party, I have left with heartburn every single year for the last 3 years. I can't be living like that because I'm destroying my body with red sauce because there's going to be pizza there, with cookies because there's going to be cookies there, with tequila because there's going to be tequila there, and maybe some White Claws, and I might even get high. And all the combination of that leaves me effed up. And I don't think I need to be doing that anymore. And I think I'd rather be on this health kick and be healthy. And I order in, and maybe I'll get Chipotle, but a little rice bowl. Who knows? No wrap, no burrito, but I'll keep it as healthy as I can. Maybe a little chocolate chip cookie treat. I don't know. Maybe I'll bake cookies. That's something I'll do. That will be my sneaking a treat in there. Is I'll buy some cookies. I'll bake them. I'm not gonna make homemade cookies. I'm not a father. I don't have a wife. I'm not baking in the kitchen. You know what I'm talking about. Nestle's, Toll House. Put them on the cooking sheet. Put them in there. 12 minutes later, I got some of the best tasting cookies in the world. That's kind of where my mentality is. And I think that would be a good treat. And maybe 2, 3 max people are at my house and we're just hanging out. So there's not a lot of distractions and we can kind of talk about the game and analyze the game. And you know what? I don't fucking care. Sorry for my cursing. I don't care to watch the halftime show. Okay? I don't want to be at a Super Bowl party where people want to watch the halftime show more than they want to watch the game. Even though every time I'm at a Super Bowl party, I get sucked in. I get sucked in and go, that was a good halftime show. That was a pretty good halftime show. The Rams-Bengals Super Bowl was the best one of all time for me. Michael Jackson's was great. Prince, fine. That was great. Miami. Justin Timberlake. Jackson. Wardrobe malfunction. Great. Regardless if you didn't agree with it. But, Eminem, Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, Upside Down. You love it because that was part of my music era where I learned music and got into music was through hip-hop. And that's why I loved that particularly. I think maybe I could even possibly do an episode where I am watching the Super Bowl from here. I could watch the game and just do a live reaction of the game, upload it right after the game. Wouldn't be able to have the sound on though because you can't have it on there. So I don't know. We'll get into that. Maybe we won't. But realistically, with my subconscious, let's just get right into what do you think? What do you think? I'm just going to go right to you right now. This isn't me. Who do you think realistically, we don't have to make it gambling. Who do you have in this game? I'm going to go with 31-21. And 31-21 Chiefs. You know what? I don't know. I don't actually know. I don't know, man. I really do not know. This is the first year where I think, if I recall last year, people were like saying the Eagles were going to win, that this team is better than what Mahomes has. Mahomes doesn't have Tyreek Hill. And then this year, I think the spread is favoring the 49ers, but I think everybody overall, the census around the sports shows and hearing people talk, everybody thinks the Chiefs are going to win because of Mahomes, because of what Mahomes has done and his experience. But there is fight with this Purdy kid, and I like Christian McCaffrey. I think I'm a big fan of him. I guess he's a fan of my comedy, so I like that. So I got to root for him. That would be cool. I like Kyle Shanahan. I like watching his press conferences. I think that's cool. So, I mean, that's a thing. I don't know who I'm going for. I never really know who I'm going for until the game starts. When I'm watching the game, then I start realizing, I feel myself rooting for this team. You got to understand something about Brock Purdy, okay? I saw the birth of Brock Purdy. It happened live in front of my face. A friend of mine, AJ, and me, we flew up to San Francisco from LA to go to the Dolphins at San Francisco game last year. Dolphins were 8-3, headed into San Francisco, LA Chargers, Buffalo Bills, Green Bay Packers games. And then I think the New England Patriots. And then the last game was the Jets. We had 7 games left, right? And we were 8-3. So there were 6 games left, ultimately, because we went 9-8. There were 6 games left, and we lost all but one of them. And we beat the Jets to make the playoffs. But that first loss was the San Francisco 49ers game. Opening play of that game, Trent Sherfield catches a slant for like 80 yards. Dolphins up 7-0. We're jumping up and down in San Francisco going, wow, this is the real deal. Like, you got to understand the emotions we had. We flew here for this game. We tailgated. We met some cool Dolphin fans. We're jumping up and down. We're ecstatic. We're up 7-0 in San Francisco, and we're like, oh, my God, this is really happening. Later that first quarter, I believe, maybe it's the first quarter, maybe beginning of the second quarter, all of a sudden, Garoppolo's not in the game. And I'm like, what's going on? And I'm looking on my phone and I say to my buddy, dude, Garoppolo, I think he's out. I don't think he's coming back. And I go, this is great. Already, I'm like, this is great. They got to put in their third string because, Trey Lance at that point, he was out for the year, if you don't remember, because he was the starter. So I'm like, they have to put the third string in? I go, this is our game. We're going to go up and win this for sure. No doubt. And it was by the second or third quarter, I remember it's a third down, and defensively at the time, we were playing that zero coverage defense a lot sometimes, but we were sending the house. We're like, yo, this guy can't handle this. We were blitzing him almost every other play. And there's this third down, and I think it was Javon Holling comes off the edge, and Purdy steps up in the pocket and avoids the defender. And I feel like he almost throws it sidearm to George Kittle coming across the middle, and they get a first down. And I looked at AJ and I was like, what the hell was that? Like, that's not a throw a third string quarterback makes. And I literally remember going, this ain't good. If this guy's getting away with throws like that, this isn't good. We have to score a lot of points to win this game. And I didn't like the way the game was going. It didn't seem like we were going to win. And I didn't necessarily think it was because of Brock Purdy, but I was very impressed at the way he finished that game. Cut to the end of the year, they end up being in the NFC Championship. He gets hurt, but then you're like, wow, we saw the birth of this guy. Then at the beginning of the year, I was like, I was a hater. I was like, yo, by the end of the year, Darnold is going to be starting. I just thought he looked great in preseason. I thought he was a better quarterback, which I would even love to have him back up Tua in Miami next year. I think he still has a chance, and he could have a Mayfield opportunity in his career if he gets another opportunity somewhere else. But I wasn't totally sold on Purdy. And then even last game, I go, you know what? I thought the Lions were going to close it out. He should have kicked this field goal when it was 24-10. They would have went up 3 scores. It would have put a lot of pressure on them. That was a mistake. However you want to analyze that game, it was a mistake. They should have kicked the field goal. And the way Purdy finished the game was impressive, that I still hated on it. I still hated and said, you know what? There's not a world I'm going to live in where I see Purdy beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. There's just no way. So right now I want the Chiefs to win because I don't want another fairy tale another fairy tale winner, kind of like what you were saying with how you watched the birth of Purdy. But I like the 49ers. I like all the players. I like more players on the 49ers. And I'm a little irritated with the Taylor Swift and the Travis Kelce. There's some sort of arrogance with this team. And ultimately, I really want Kyle Shanahan to win a Super Bowl. Because, we, Miami Dolphin fans, we come from that tree offensively. Mike McDaniel learned a lot of what he does today, most of what he does through the Shanahan system, through Kyle's father, and it, it feels like then we get that out of the way when we play the 49ers and the Super Bowl Dolphins, then we can win because they won their ring already, right? That's kind of part of it, where, it's also scary if we're somehow we slip through the cracks, like what you were saying last year. If you get to the AFC Championship, that's a win. But what if we got to the Super Bowl? If we play the Cowboys, that would be scary because you're like, oh, they're like the Dolphins of the NFC. They haven't really been to a game since 95. We haven't been to one since 91. So we're identical to each other. And I think that the 49ers could win this game. I think they could win this game. And the reason I am maybe not going for them is because I'm scared. It's fear. It's my own fear. In my mind, I think that if the 49ers win, then it hurts Tua Tagovailoa's case. It makes us be like, well, he's not even as good as Brock Purdy.
Or you could look at it in another way, and it says, hey, you know what? If Brock Purdy can beat Mahomes, then why can't Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, any of these other guys that you think are not top 5 elite quarterbacks? And I think we could be surprised. I'm rooting. I am rooting for Kyle Shanahan, and I think the 49ers could definitely win this game. And they're favored. But, I mean, it's Mahomes. At the end of the day, you're playing Mahomes, and I don't know if it's so – I don't know if it's possible. I think I heard Dan Marino on Pat McAfee today, and he was just like, this is his 4th Super Bowl. He's won 2. He knows what he's doing. He's so competitive. And, I just don't think – I think that's the deciding factor. I think that at the end of the day, the Chiefs are going to win. I do think the Chiefs are going to win. But, I'm not – I wasn't as against Purdy as you were. And I think that will change. I think you have to come to terms with yourself.
I mean, so now I'm here to basically apologize. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. And he's earned his spot in the NFL as a starting quarterback that can lead a team to a Super Bowl, obviously. And I don't think that he's elite like Mahomes or Josh Allen, but what he's doing is, to be quite honest with you, he's doing exactly what Brady did in his first dynasty run. Brady wasn't outstanding his first 5 years. He had a defense, one of the best defenses, to help him out, and he would take what the defense gave him. It was never extraordinary throws where he was throwing a ball through a keyhole, where he was making plays, avoiding sacks. He was always great pocket present, but there was a lot of dink and dumps to running backs, quick slants, just getting the ball out quick. That's what he was doing. He was just getting the ball out quickly and making it hard to sack him. It wasn't until later on in his career where he had some huge weapons like Randy Moss and other great wide receivers and a great O-line and a great running back room where it made him a little bit more comfortable to make bigger plays. But in the Super Bowls he lost, he held the ball too long and the lines got to him. The defensive lines he played against the Giants dominated him. Even the Seahawks dominated him, and they messed it up in the end. But that was the way to beat Brady until he got older, and he still made some giant throws. The Tampa Bay Bucs team is probably the best team Brady ever had, but he always took what the defense was giving him, and that's what and that's what Brock Purdy is doing. Do I think he can beat Mahomes? It just doesn't feel like he can. I'm not opposed to it, but it just doesn't feel like it's a possibility. How about this? Mahomes can make mistakes in this game and still win, as he has in his previous 2 Super Bowl wins. We all agree on that. Mahomes could definitely make mistakes and still win this game. We agree that if Purdy makes mistakes, they're not going to win the game. He needs to have a clean game. Then they put a lot of the pressure on McCaffrey or maybe Debo. There's a lot of other moving parts that have to continue to be good and not make mistakes. And listen, the Chiefs can't make a lot of mistakes, but I think Mahomes has the ability to get downfield in 4 plays if he really wanted to. And that's the reason he's one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. Ultimately, if I had to do a prediction for what I think is going to happen, listen, very rarely are these Super Bowls high scoring, right? I think in the last, I don't think we've had someone score 40 points, right? Was there anyone score in the last 20? I would have to pull it up, but I don't believe, if we look at all the Super Bowl, let me pull it up right now, Super Bowl year by year, I don't think there's been a 40, has anyone scored 40 points since the Cowboys and 49ers back in the day, right? In the last, here we go, 41 by the Eagles and Super Bowl 52. So that's the highest amount. 41 by the Eagles. Before that, Seattle had 43-8, and that was Super Bowl 48. So maybe I'm wrong a little bit on that. So there's been 40 points in the last 2 years. I think defensively, the way these two teams match up, I think if someone scores 30 points, they definitely win. But I'm expecting like a 24-21 game. I don't want to stamp that as my prediction, but if I have to, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say 24-20 Kansas City Chiefs. That's going to be my prediction. 24-20 Kansas City wins on. No, they're not going to win on. I say Kansas City wins 24-20 on a failed game-winning drive by Purdy, and that's not me. I'm not hating on Purdy, but I see it like the Chiefs kind of comfortably have the lead. Maybe a late field goal by the 49ers makes it a 4-point game. Then they stop the Chiefs. There's maybe like 3-4 minutes left, and 49ers have to go down and get a touchdown. Maybe, but it's a close game. Nobody's really running away with it. But yeah, that's how I'm going to go with 24-20 Kansas City Chiefs, and that's just how I'm calling it. Super Bowl MVP. With a 24-20 game, there's a chance for it to not be a quarterback. You could have a Travis Kelce Super Bowl MVP here if he got 2 touchdowns and it was 24-20. But I'm going to go with Mahomes. With Mahomes in one of his better Super Bowl games because he hasn't played the best in Super Bowls. Not that he's played bad, but one of the Super Bowls where he's like, all right, here we go. So 24-20. Man, as I say it, it feels like it could be a higher scoring game. But defensively, these are two good defenses, and Kansas City's defense has been great all year, and it's the one thing that's been consistent. So I'm going to go with 24-20. That's my final answer. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to give you this. My top 10 Super Bowls of my lifetime. Okay? Now, going back to 84, right? It's the year I'm born. I wasn't born in January. I was born in June. So my first Super Bowl would be the Dolphins and San Francisco 49ers of January 1985. But I didn't know those games. I'm going to talk about the top 10 Super Bowls that I watched with my own eyes. And really, I don't have any I don't remember any of the Buffalo Super Bowls. I think I was too young. By Buffalo's last Super Bowl, I'm 9. I turned 9. I'm 8. I'm 8 years old. So by my 9th birthday, when I'm 9 going on 10, is Buffalo versus Dallas. I don't recall that one. I think I do. I remember Dallas winning it, and I remember seeing it on the news, but I don't have a memory of the game, to be surprised. My first memory of the game was the blowout of the 49ers versus the San Diego Chargers, which I remember that playoff. I remember the playoffs. I remember the Dolphins losing to the Chargers in the divisional round and the Chargers beating the Steelers. I remember we lost to the Chargers because Pete Stoyanovich missed a field goal, and then the 49ers I remember the Jerry Rice touchdowns and Steve Young throwing 6 touchdown passes, and it just being a boring game. And it's also because that Super Bowl was played in Miami. Now, from those Super Bowls, from that point on, from 1995 to present day, are going to be my top 10 Super Bowls that I list. I'm not going to go before that because I didn't watch them. Sure, there's film on them, but I want to be relatable to the people listening to this show who watch this show. I think that, maybe some of these will be before your time. I don't know, but I'm giving you my top 10 from my era. And coming in at number 10, and listen, disagree if you want, comment, let me know what you think. I want to know your top 10 Super Bowls. If you have them, if you've done the research, give me your top 5 Super Bowls. I think a lot of us are going to be the same on what's one of the best Super Bowls. I think relatively, my top 3 Super Bowls could either be one of your favorite Super Bowls, unless you are a huge fan of a team, and that was obviously your favorite. But like the Bucks beating the Raiders is not in my top 10 Super Bowls. It was a blowout. It was cool, but it was a boring game. You know, Baltimore beating the Giants, it was a blowout. You know, any of the Denver Super Bowls, they were great. It was fun to watch, but it wasn't. I mean, the Broncos beating the Packers in '98 was a good Super Bowl. Just watching John Elway dive as an old man, trying to, you know, just watching him in that game was watching it. I remember thinking, he's old, and it was fun to watch him win. But number 10 would have to be, and most recently, Super Bowl 56, the Rams versus Bengals. And it was a close game for the most part. And in going into this Super Bowl, I was like, Rams are definitely going to beat the Bengals. I couldn't believe the Bengals had even got this far. Bengals come out of halftime with a huge touchdown, and you're like, they could win this. They could win this. And it was a tight game, and it wasn't huge. It was 23-20 was the final score. But it was a very high pressure, and the anxiety was going. You could feel it in the room. It was like, oh, this game's intense. Bengals take the lead. They're up 20 to 16. And then, you know, sure, there's some penalties that kind of helped a little bit. But that last drive with Cooper Kupp and Stafford was unbelievable to watch, and Cooper Kupp had a great game, so that was exciting. I wouldn't say arguably off topic. Larry Fitzgerald's Super Bowl was amazing, but then the Bengals have a chance to get in field goal range, and in a situation where you're like, they can definitely get in field goal range, we might be looking at an overtime game. Aaron Donald makes an unbelievable play on a 4th and short. So, not the best of Super Bowls that I've seen, but again, you know, what was my first Super Bowl was Super Bowl, 29. So here we are, 30 Super. So this is, this is going to be my 29th Super Bowl I'm seeing. So of the 10, that's number 10. Number 9, a pretty recent one would be Super Bowl 52, Eagles versus Pats. Because I didn't think they had a chance to win. I don't think anyone thought the Eagles had a chance to win, because especially that Carson Wentz was out and you had Nick Foles going in, and they just outcoached Bill Belichick. And that's why this has to be on everyone's top 10, because this was a game that Bill Belichick got outcoached. And out of the other games, listen, when the Patriots lost to the Giants, they didn't get outcoached. It was clearly the defensive line was so dominant, and there was a couple lucky plays, obviously, which one of them's on my top 10. But it wasn't like this Eagles game, and they got outcoached, and they shocked the world. And it was an exciting game, back and forth, 41-30. I mean, you had 74 points scored. It was an exciting game. Brady throws for over 500 yards. Nick Foles catches a touchdown on a trick play. Unbelievable game. That's my 9th. The 8th Super Bowl is another Patriots Super Bowl. By the way, before we even get into this, Tom Brady is all over this list. All of his Super Bowls have been fucking phenomenal. But the 8th best Super Bowl for me is Patriots-Panthers. Tom Brady's 2nd Super Bowl win. 32-29, Super Bowl 38 over the Carolina Panthers. Another kind of less dramatic game-winning field goal for the Patriots. It was kind of like, you felt like this game was going back and forth. Jake Delhomme, Carolina Panthers, they tied up late in that game, and there was enough time. They're like, maybe they can stop them here. They got in field goal range. Easy field goal by Adam Vinatieri. And it was over, and you're like, wow. But it wasn't as magical as Brady's first Super Bowl. But I remember it being a great Super Bowl. I remember I was in college. A lot of great memories from that. And that was the beginning of realizing, like, oh, wow, this Tom Brady kid is good. This guy's gonna be. He's already cemented himself as one of like the best quarterbacks in history because he just won his second Super Bowl. Coming in at number 7, Giants beating the Patriots, but not only the Patriots, the undefeated 18-0 Patriots that everybody in the world probably put a lot of money on the Patriots because you were like, they're not going to lose in the Super Bowl. This is easy money. The Giants are a 6 seed. They barely made the playoffs. They're not going to win the Super Bowl against arguably, this is the greatest team of all time. And even today, I think it's one of the greatest teams of all time, even though they didn't win. They were 18-0. They were unstoppable. Records being broke offensively. Randy Moss broke the wide receiver touchdown record. Tom Brady broke the touchdown record, the passing yards record. They scored the most points in history record. It was a phenomenal team that kind of got slowed down by the Giants. I think it was like in week 15 before the playoffs, they had to play the Giants. So it was a rematch. They were familiar with each other. But it comes down to a play that you could almost say the refs could have blown the whistle. But Eli Manning so awkwardly played football throughout his career that is a moment you'll remember forever because that is who he was as a quarterback. He was hard to take down. He had a little Ben Roethlisberger to him, could avoid sacks sometimes, and he spins out of a sack and throws a prayer to David Tyree. I'm sorry. And he catches a crazy ball that puts him in a position to throw a go-ahead touchdown to Plaxico Burress before he shot himself in the leg. So that's number 7. And that was a great Super Bowl, and it was a crazy Super Bowl for all of the stakes and the reasons of what that team was. But ultimately, it was a very boring game. It was 14-10 until the last 5 minutes. So it was till the last 2 minutes, really. And then Tom Brady, by the way, after they score, I don't know if you guys remember this, Tom Brady throws a couple bombs that Randy Moss maybe misses by a couple yards. Like, literally, this could have been the greatest Super Bowl of all time. Like, I'm talking about, he almost connects with Randy Moss 70 yards down the field. He throws a Hail Mary. It was unbelievable because they would have probably had to run all the way up there and spike the ball. I don't know if they had a timeout at that point. Coming in at number 6, last year's Super Bowl 57, Chiefs versus Eagles. Probably the greatest Super Bowl performance from a player that didn't win the Super Bowl in Jalen Hurts. Outside of his fumble, which ultimately costed them the game, it was an unbelievable boxing match, back and forth, very exciting. Unfortunately, ended with a dumb penalty. Really, I think we all wanted to see if the Eagles were going to be able to come back down and tie the game. And it feels like they would have got... I think we all would have loved to see this game go in OT. And we kind of got ripped off there. I don't think that... I think the better team won that day, ultimately. For Mahomes to throw a couple picks and then still win. And he was limping. I mean, he was a warrior in that game. Jalen Hurts could have won MVP. But, man, it would have been great if that went into overtime 38-38. Thank God this year's overtime would have been better. I think they had that overtime applied to that playoff where each team would have at least got the ball once. And that would have been unbelievable. To be 38-38, it goes to overtime, and knowing that each team is going to get the ball no matter what, whether a team scores or not. And we know that that's the rule in the playoffs. But that is got to be one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time, and it's number 6 on my list. That's how crazy this list is from my perspective. Number 5, because it's nostalgic, it's Super Bowl 34, Rams versus Titans. It was one of the best Super Bowls up to that point. Okay, you had the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner and the St. Louis Rams, and it was unbelievable because it was out of nowhere. They weren't expected to be this great, and they came out of nowhere, and Kurt Warner made a name for himself. The Titans were always good. They were pretty consistently good. Coach Fisher had a good squad. They were great defensively. This Titans team, I don't know if you guys remember, a wild card team that was hosting the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills beat them, and they threw the lateral, and they scored a touchdown with no time left to continue this Cinderella season all the way to the Super Bowl and eventually played the Rams, which they came a yard short from tying. Another Super Bowl that could have ended up in overtime, and it would have been a great story because they were the first team to kind of slow down the Rams. The Rams were putting up 30, 40 points a game every week. But the Rams won 23-16. Steve McNair, rest in peace. Eddie George, Kevin Dyson, 1 yard short. Just a lot of great players. Who's the running back of the Rams? Why am I forgetting? Falk? No. Torrey Holt. Just a lot of great. Isaac Bruce. A lot of great players. A great Super Bowl. Number 4, Super Bowl 43. One of my favorite Super Bowls. Steelers 27. Cardinals 23. I will say this. First half, very boring in this game. We were all like, oh, this is a very boring game. But I think in the fourth quarter, I think there was 4 touchdowns, to be quite honest with you. I think that's how exciting it was. I think Larry Fitzgerald went off and scored a touchdown. They were up 23-20 with like no time left. And Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers marched down the field kind of like a Cooper Kupp situation with Santonio Holmes and makes beautiful throws, unbelievable throws, and probably, I would say, the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. Yes, the Giants' catch is unbelievable, but that's a little ugly and lucky. Santonio Holmes makes a catch, tiptoed, corner of the back of the end zone. It's unbelievable. It's literally, to this day, is the best catch. I think it's the best catch in Super Bowl history. The second catch in Super Bowl history is actually later on this list. Is from a player that's team lost in the Super Bowl. But that game was unbelievable. In the fourth quarter, Larry Fitzgerald goes off. It was unbelievable to watch him, how competitive he was. There was a halftime mess up by Kurt Warner, a pick 6 right before half. Cardinals could have definitely won this Super Bowl, and that would have changed a lot of things in history. Number 3 would be Patriots versus Seahawks. We all know what happens in this game. They should have ran the ball, the Seahawks. They might have another Super Bowl, and Tom Brady only has 6. But this game it felt like the Seahawks had surprisingly dominated this game. It didn't feel like I don't think they were favored, but you wanted them to win because we didn't like Tom Brady at that point because we were like, he's won his rings, right? But this was a point where it was like, is he going to lose another Super Bowl? It was going to be his 3rd Super Bowl loss in a row, I believe, right? Let me double check on this. Yes, because he beats the Rams. Tampa, that's 7-6-5. Yes, this was going to be, he would have lost 3 in a row. Seahawks were defending champs, shocked the world beating Denver. Now they're going to try to they beat Peyton Manning. Now they're going to try to beat Tom Brady. And they were kind of dominating. And then, shockingly though, it felt gross. People forget about this play. Right before this happens, the end of the game, they get a lucky catch that the guy catches it on the sideline and it looks like it's incomplete, but he like stops it from hitting the ground. There's 2 players on the ground. It's almost intercepted. They get a catch, and it sets them up for this first and goal and a chance to win the game and seal the Super Bowl. And they run it on first down, and on second down, he throws the pick to Malcolm Butler, which was just a shock. It's the most shocking play in Super Bowl history, so I think I put that at 3. People might disagree with having this Super Bowl up there, but just because of the outcome of this game and how shocking it was, and, pretty much put Tom Brady in GOAT status. So that's number 3. I'm even talking myself out of having it at 3. I might have put the Steelers Cardinals ahead of that. Number 2 would be Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. It was great. It was unbelievable. We were rooting for them. At this point, the Rams had established themselves as the team to beat. for 3 years in a row, they were pretty dominant. They didn't make the Super Bowl after winning it against the Titans. The following year, they lose to the Bucks. And then, they lose to the Giants. But they could have went to 3 in a row. And then they're supposed to beat the Patriots. We're like, there's no way the Patriots can beat them. But we were all going for the Patriots. Once it was tied 17-17, you're like, wow, this might be the first game that's going to go to overtime. You're like, even the announcers in it, I think it's Madden and the legendary guys, rest in peace to them. I think they're like, I think they'll just kneel the ball here and head to overtime. Everybody thought, I think there was like a minute left. They're like, they're not going to force it with this young kid and try to get in field goal range. And sure enough, a couple big plays, there they are. And Adam Vinatieri hits one of the most clutch field goals of all time. And it was just unbelievable watching them run on the field, they were the underdogs. I get goosebumps talking about it, living in that moment up to that point. All the Super Bowls prior to that, Baltimore destroys the Giants. The Titans-Rams one was kind of close, but Denver really beats Atlanta. Green Bay was a 1 touchdown score, but Denver was winning. Green Bay beats New England. Dallas beats Pittsburgh. None of them were close. Dallas beats Buffalo twice. There wasn't a close Super Bowl since the Giants-Buffalo one in 91. So this was like the best Super Bowl anyone has ever seen. And it was these underdog, no-name people who were winning this game. And it was unbelievable. So that has to be number 2. Again, this is in my lifetime. And number 1, and I think for anyone over the age of 15 or whether you're a 75-year-old guy or you're my age or you're a teenager, the number 1 Super Bowl of all time, Tom Brady's comeback down 28-3. It was unbelievable because everybody's sitting around going, what the hell is happening? And you thought it was over, and people are just drinking and going, this is over. And little by little, that was my first time cheering for Tom Brady post his first few Super Bowls. I believe I was going for the Eagles because I wanted Terrell Owens to win when the Patriots won their 3rd. I think I was going for the Panthers maybe. But Tom Brady, I was going for him when they beat the Rams. But this time, when they were down 28-3, you're like, I want to see him come back. This game's a blowout. And when he started coming back, you were like, this is awesome. We all were looking around going, this is crazy. And then this is what I wanted to bring up. Julio Jones makes the 2nd greatest catch I've ever seen of all time in Super Bowls. At this point, I think it's 28-20. It's 28-20. Atlanta's up 8 points. And Matt Ryan, who was the MVP that year, throws a pass towards the sideline that looks like it's not catchable. And Julio Jones gets up in the air and somehow catches the ball, jumping in the air, and also tiptoes, gets 2 feet in to secure a catch that puts them at about the 30-yard line of the Patriots. And so they caught it. And at this point, I think there's less than 3 minutes left. I could be wrong here. There's not a lot of time left. There's less than 4 minutes for sure. You were like, wow, they're in field goal range. And this is something that probably haunts Kyle Shanahan from now. They run the ball 3 times and kick a field goal. They go up 11, it's over. There's no comeback. We're not even talking about the Super Bowl. We're talking about how Matt Ryan has a Super Bowl ring, Julio Jones has a Super Bowl, and it was one of the better dominant performances by an MVP winning a Super Bowl that same year. But on first down, they get a holding call because he passes. And then on second down, he gets sacked. And third down, they don't convert the first down and they have to punt the ball. And New England goes down and they're still down 8 and scores a touchdown and gets the 2-point conversion. And it's our first Super Bowl that heads to overtime. Right? It's our first overtime Super Bowl that we've ever had. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And they win in overtime by scoring the touchdown right away. right away. I mean, they could not, at that point, I think the Atlanta team felt they were just emotionally defeated. And by the way, these Patriot teams, the ones against the Seahawks and the ones against Atlanta, I mean, they were so dominant. 12-4 against the Seahawks, 14-2 against the Falcons that year. I mean, New England was pretty much so dominant. And then that goes back to earlier in the episode talking about what we're dealing with. But that's my top 10 Super Bowls. Let me know what you think. Top 5 plays in Super Bowl history. I've already talked about a few of them, but why not? Let's throw it in there. Top 5 plays in Super Bowl history. Number 5, got to be Nick Foles' touchdown catch. Trick play by the Eagles. At that point, everybody watching was like, oh, wow, the Eagles are going to beat the Patriots and upset them. So pretty awesome moment. And, maybe we'll see a play like that again with Trevor Lawrence in the Super Bowl with the Jaguars because, he's there and he's a good coach. So what's his name? I'm forgetting. Number 4 is the Julio Jones catch. Unbelievable. It was an unbelievable catch. I suggest if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. It was an unbelievable catch. Number 3, the Malcolm Butler interception. It's just, how is that not in your top 5 plays of all time? It's unbelievable. It really makes a name for this guy, which ultimately he gets in a fight with Belichick and doesn't play against the Eagles. It's all connected somehow, right? It's all connected. Number 2 would be the San Antonio Holmes catch. Steelers winning the Super Bowl over the Cardinals. Like I told you, greatest catch of all time in Super Bowl history. But number 1, you have to give it to the David Tyree catch because it's basically what upset the 18-0 team. And it was crazy. Just on the helmet, the ability to keep it there and it not touch the ground, and it came an inch away. An inch away. But those are the top 5 plays of all time. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. I know you guys are, but then we got another 7 months before we get to watch a meaningful game. But we got free agency. We got the draft. We got other news that's going to pop in. We got drama. There's going to be drama. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, obviously this is a podcast for you. I'm a huge Miami Dolphins fan. I have little inside info. I have people I know on the team. I've got to perform stand-up for the team. That's fun. So if you're a big Miami Dolphins fan, this is kind of led through the eyes of a Miami Dolphins fan. So make sure you like and subscribe if you're a fan of this. But I'm also going to do a lot of, I like history. I love the history of the NFL. So I'll do a lot of episodes about, the history of teams. Maybe we'll go through all 32 teams throughout the offseason and talk about what are some of the best players of each team. I don't know, but I'll come up with a lot of lists for this channel. But I appreciate everyone watching. So make sure you like and subscribe. Goodbye to self. That was a fun little gig we did. And I'll see you guys next week. Make sure you like and subscribe. Goodbye.